Hello, and welcome back to 4-Bit. I'm back with some bad news and some more bad news. So, Amazon has a program called Amazon Merch, which is where they essentially allow you to upload your designs of shirts, and then what they do is when a customer purchases your shirt, they make it, they handle the payments, and they ship it out to the customer within 2 days if you have Amazon Prime, which is pretty cool. So I applied for it. I got declined, which kind of sucks. Which it's not like I'm some Joe Schmo. Like this is a legit business. 4-Bit is a legit LLC. So I put in my EIN. Like I went through a whole bunch of like random information that I had to give them, and they declined it. So that sucks. So I did some looking on the internet to see what people had to say about that, and apparently this is a common thing where Amazon doesn't approve everybody, and they don't necessarily give a reason as to why they don't approve people, but those who have been declined, they wait like a month later and then reapply with all the same information and they get approved. So that's probably what I'm going to try to do. So that's no big deal. It's not a long-term thing. I'm not necessarily going to do shirts indefinitely through Amazon Merch, but because it's so autonomous, it seems like the best decision for me right now. And then we go on to our second problem. While I was designing the shirts for Amazon, I was thinking to myself, well, I better like quadruple check and make sure that this logo that I've been using is not used by any larger company or anything. It's not used before. So what I did was I did a reverse image search on Google to see if it came up, and apparently there's a company called Micro Focus that has literally the same logo and has been using that same logo, so I accidentally, unknowingly copied their logo with the same ratios too, because when I designed my version, or the same thing, when I was designing it, I used a design technique that uses the aspect ratio of 1.618 to 1 and between the inner ratio of the box and the outer ratio, it doesn't matter. The point is, yeah, that's gotta go. This is kind of a bummer because when I initially made that logo, I actually did a reverse image search then to see, well, like, okay, there's no way that somebody hasn't made this logo before. It looks too simple, but nothing came up. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll use it. Well, for some reason, when I did a reverse image search now, it showed that Micro Focus uses it. So that sucks. But the new one has the old logo inside of it, actually. It can't possibly be used by anybody else, right? Because it has the name 4-Bit in the logo. And that's another thing too. Like the old logo didn't have any distinction that it was 4-Bit in the company. So now you can see it in the logo, and it looks party. So here's the old logo. You ready for this? You ready for this? Here's the new logo. Bam! Hot. It looks good, right? Or I think so. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments section, because I don't know. I think it suits pretty well, but I want to know what you guys think. And without further ado, though, without me wasting any more time, enjoy the rest of the video. I start by tracing the edge of the flare with tape and a Sharpie so I could hold it up to stuff with a similar diameter in the hopes of having a perfect circle for me to use as a mold, since sanding just isn't making a perfect arc. I come back to a better solution later, but for now I begin catching up with some of the remaining fiberglass on certain panels, using tape to guide the fiberglass into how I want it. I then switch to fiberglass filler to shape everything better and pick up where the fiberglass left off. I found out on my own that a dull razor blade quickly shapes things while the filler isn't completely hardened yet.
Everybody sees me. so peace gotta become what you hate. Now I made your mama cry, cause the sun jumped up enough to say what's on my mind now. I just wanna die. This skip 100 eyes, gonna jump right out the window. Living in a fishbowl, and I can't get my shakes out when everybody sees me, but I can't see them. I'm just a little fishy in a big world. Looking at me funny, tapping on the glass, watching while I dig myself a big hole.
And as the heads of her enemies trembled to the floor, she began to wonder, is it better to be right or to be loved?
For those of you who are new, the pinkish stuff is body filler, also known as Bondo, which is a less structural mixture of filler similar in consistency to spackle used for drywall. Throughout the project, I try to use mostly fiberglass filler, occasionally adding a thin layer of body filler on top and then spot putty for the tiny imperfections.
Made your mama cry, cause the sun jumped up enough to say what's on my mind now. I just wanna die. Skip 100 eyes, gonna jump right out the window. Living in a fishbowl, and I can't get my shakes out when everybody sees me, but I can't see them. I'm just a little fishy in a big world. Looking at me funny, tapping on the glass, watching while I dig myself a big, living in a fishbowl, and I can't get my shakes out when everybody sees me, but I can't see them. I'm just a little fishy in a big world, yeah. And all the big fish looking at me funny, tapping on the glass, watching while I dig myself a big hole.
And here's where the mess begins. I need to fill the holes in where the previous owner drilled the Widebody kit rivets and stuff. So I created a little trough around each hole with tape so that I can pour fiberglass resin into place to fill these holes. For some holes that I worked on, I also shaved off the excess with a razor blade and placed fiberglass filler over the successful ones and then shaved that flat. These then got covered in spot putty for the remaining imperfections. Not all these holes came out very nicely because they're not structurally sound. If you press them, that they kind of like can push out, and that's not good. I want you to be able to push on these filled in areas and not be able to knock them out or anything. After some finishing touches, I scuffed the panels that go between the clamshell and the doors, and I also sprayed them with primer. Also, for the record, I do always use waxing grease remover before I do anything on any surface. I just don't normally film that part. It gets pretty redundant. Later I scuffed up the rear clam, especially blending in the painted trunk jam with the stripped paint elsewhere by sanding the edges. Just for you guys at home, don't ever strip paint with a razor. Use a chemical stripper if the car is in fiberglass, or sand it. My curiosity got the best of me here and made my life so much more difficult. So don't do that. I had taken too much off of the arch of the fender flares, so I mixed some fiberglass filler and resin for strength and put it into my little tape area trough thingy so that it flows into position that I want it. This is the same method I used on the headlight bucket area, and it worked great then. Then I sanded it off along with the others. To make the little recessed area where the bolts go through to bolt it to the clam, I taped one of the existing parts of the fender flare and put the fiberglass filler over it. Then when that hardened, I used that as a mold for the new section. This was all part of these Widebody kit pieces, getting them ready for primer, as you'll see with me adding and sanding spot putty to make the final touches.
To myself, if you ever wonder why. I'm so low, man, this Two beds in one big room. Tuesdays they go, we stay. I guess it's family life. No way that this is how we'll stay. Your face it, let's get out. Okay, rebelling, let's get out. Okay, you know that
I needed something to mold the fenders to so that it has the same diameter, so it's a more complete arch. It looks kind of jagged when you look up close to it. But I actually found there was a little metal arch on the back of the fender liners, so I took an inverse mold of that with fiberglass, and then when that dried, I took a mold from that. After taking a Dremel to the excess, I had a perfectly curved sanding block that I could use to make a better arc around all the flares. And as you can see, I'm pretty proud of coming up with this. That was successful. The Widebody kit hardware, however, was not. First time using one of these, so let's give it a shot, I guess. Whoa. Oh wait, what? I did that wrong. Well, I didn't exactly do it wrong. The problem is that the thread insert is trying to expand inside of the fiberglass instead of behind it, which is a serious problem, and it starts cracking things. So when I pull tight on the tool, you should see the thread insert compressing on the underside, but you don't because it's actually digging into the fiberglass instead. This really sucks because it won't work, and I'll have to find another solution for mounting the kit to the car altogether. So the Widebody kit hardware that I purchased is useless at this point. I'm also aware the dial on the tool is for loosening the bit, but I'm challenged. For the Widebody kit, I'm going to take this. It's a little paper, sandpaper thing, and I'm going to go into the holes like that. That way there's enough to grip for the fiberglass that goes in. I'm going to fill in all the holes and just start from scratch. My exhaustion clearly didn't help with my explanation here, but basically what I was trying to say was that the holes that were larger didn't fill in with enough strength before with the initial batch of fiberglass resin. And so instead I'm going to Dremel away a little ring around the hole so that the resin has a way to grab to the clamshell and hold it in place. And so after making these rings, I began filling the holes once again in hopes that if I tested the strength again by pushing on the filled resin, it wouldn't push through this time and will be fixated in place. But by this time, the solution to the Widebody kit mounting problem came in the mail, and I felt pretty clever for coming up with this. The question I had was this: what can I use to bolt the kit into the car when the fiberglass is too thick, since everything on the market is for thin aluminum body panels? Well, motorcycles can't use aluminum riv nuts for the mounting of their windscreens, so they use rubber ones with brass thread certs instead. The rubber squeezes up against the windshields or windscreens, whatever they are, without cracking them. And I thought this would be pretty perfect. So I hopped on eBay and bought a few orders of the motorcycle kit, and when it arrived, I could finally give it a try. Problem is, these bolts are not long enough. But thankfully, the good news is that these grip pretty well, because I put them on without the fender just to see if it would like clamp down well enough, and it holds it in place pretty darn well. So I'm big sad, but I live, 15 minutes away from Paul B. Zimmerman's. So I'm probably gonna go there, make a little trip, and find a longer version of these. Because they look all right, but they gotta fit. And also, the problem I was going to run into at some point anyways, was the one fender on the rear, right where the rear clamshell meets to the side skirt looking thing that's actually attached to the body. That fender flare, here, I'll grab it. I need one that's like an extra inch or so longer. So if I go to Paul B, I'll see if that's there. I always look so distraught. I look very homeless. Thankfully, the new bolts from Paul B are long enough to fit, although in the future I might try to find new ones that are better finished. But for now, I dremeled the holes out a bit more to be large enough for the new rubber inserts, which are removable unlike the aluminum riv nuts prior. I just enlarged the existing holes on the clam and skirt to see whether I need to fill and re-drill new ones to get the fitment right, but only the passenger side of the front clam was going to work with the existing holes just enlarged. I also then started to get the doors masked off so then we can spray it with primer after we fix any imperfections with it. But for now, it will be used as a guide for the damaged clam for a smooth panel gap. So here's the thing, right? Not only do these holes not meet up properly, you see how that's like half-inch gap there, that's not good. It doesn't, the previous owner, whenever they installed the Widebody kit, the holes didn't line up the way they should have. And so not only do we need to replace the holes for that reason, we also have this problem. It's not supposed to be this floppy. Now the reason it's so floppy actually is because I guess when the car was getting picked up by the forklift, you can kind of see it, to get lifted onto the car or onto the truck. I guess it like pushed up against this. Now this is actually a replaceable piece which holds the fuel tank up. The fuel tank is fine. It's in the correct position. The only thing is like this little aluminum piece on the side is pushed up. So the reason that side doesn't mount up properly is because it's supposed to slide in the area between the aluminum and the fiberglass. And because we can't do that, because this is pushed up, for now I think I'm gonna cut it back a little bit. Cut the fender back, the fender flare, just a little bit, and then we can mount it up the way we want. I'm probably gonna put a riv nut, just like we did on the replacement holes. We're gonna put it into the bottom of the fiberglass there. That way it mounts it in place sturdier than before. And I guess we'll maybe replace that part in the future. But until then, I guess this is just what we're gonna have. So for now, we're gonna start with making the holes and mounting that one up on both sides, and then we can kind of go from there with the rear clamshell. But you can see I already marked holes with Sharpie as to where the best position would be for it to look proper and for it to sit against this little body line the best. But that'll be all for this video. Obviously, when I was saying before all this time that, oh yeah, we're gonna get to base coat and clear coat very soon, obviously that hasn't happened yet, but it is on the horizon. One thing I do want to say though is that these videos, I'm going to be editing them differently, and I'm also going to be cutting them down into shorter videos, which means they'll be able to be more frequent. I'll be able to upload more frequently. What I mean by changing the editing is not the style or anything, but the way I do it now is I work on the car for a while, and then when I think I've reached a point where I can make a video that's good enough so it's worth watching, it gets enough done in the video where you're not able to just skip it and feel like, it's worthless, you know what I mean? Like a lot of the channels nowadays, what they do is they like work on the car for 5 minutes, or 5 seconds actually, and then the rest of the video they just go and ramble on, which is kind of what I'm doing right now. The whole point of these changes is to make 4-bit, the channel, into something that I want it to be, something that I could do full time, which would be pretty cool. I don't know that that's possible, but we're trying. On Instagram, I've been putting more on my story about updates on the car, so before the videos come out. So if you want, you can follow my Instagram, you're welcome to, at Christian Webs, and then when I upload on my story about random updates, you know, random stuff, you'll be able to see it and keep track of the project before that ends up on YouTube. If you're subscribed, or if you want to subscribe, you can click the notification bell, like the little icon next to the subscribe button, and you'll be notified of when these videos come out, because sometimes they're hard to keep track of. But I think that's all actually. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
Thank you.